Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video. This takes us to the 16th of October, but extend out beyond that with the extended GFS, because that runs to around 2 weeks. Today's first video was a weekend forecast, so you can find that video on the forecast page for the weather for the week ahead. It's cold and wet out there at the moment. That's not going to be typical of weather in the weekend. Actually, it's going to be a lot more warm and dry weather around, except in the far west of Scotland, where it's going to be exceptionally wet from Sunday through to Tuesday. But have a look at weekend forecast and see what you think. This is going to take us through the week to 10-day forecast time frame with the GFS, the ECM, and the GEM2. We'll see what's happening in the tropical Atlantic. And I'll get on with it for you right now. I'd say it's a very, very cold afternoon for the time of year out there this afternoon. These are the latest observations from XC Weather. And you can see just really low temperatures. Wittering, for example, in the East Midlands at just 8 degrees Celsius. Church Lawford at 8 degrees Celsius. Wellersbourne Airfield at 8 degrees. Coming down to Fairford at just 8 degrees there. So most of these stations, High Wycombe is at 7 degrees. Most of these stations somewhere between 7 and 8 degrees. Luton at 8 degrees. And in the south it's a little bit warmer. Headcorn Aerodrome is at 12 degrees, and then down to Langdon Bay at 14 degrees down there. The rain hasn't yet arrived. Temperatures will be falling back down there. Not quite as bad further north, but still pretty cold for the time of year, to be honest. Drumalbin at 9 degrees, Dundee at 12 degrees, Aberdeen at 11. So the coldest temperatures are where we've got this persistent rain, but even behind it, when it brightens up, really quite chilly with those temperatures. As I say, there could be some very wet weather from Sunday through to Tuesday in the northwest of Scotland. So this is the 5-day accumulated precipitation forecast from the weather outlets. In most places in the next 5 days, not getting any rain. Do see some rain here across England and Wales in terms of 7-8 millimetres, and it's still picking up on today's rainfall. Once today's rain's out of the way, England and Wales will be dry for the rest of the week. But look at this big red area up here across the west of Scotland. In some parts of West Scotland, the GFS in the next 5 days is just over 5 days, and it's particularly from tomorrow through to Tuesday, so in a 3-day period, really. The GFS is in some places picking up over 200 millimetres of rain falling in the western part of Scotland. Exceptionally wet, because they are used to it, particularly at this time of year, but that is exceptionally wet. Over 200 millimetres of rain for some of those western parts of Scotland as a weather. It just gets stuck, and we see a continuous ribbon of rain pushing in from off the Atlantic Ocean. One of those classic situations where it's exceptionally wet across the west of Scotland, but many other places will be mainly dry and becoming increasingly warm. Let's see what's happening in the tropical Atlantic then. So this is the latest in terms of disturbances. Let's deal with this red area first of all down here in the Caribbean. So this is disturbance 1. The National Hurricane Centre are saying about this that satellite imagery, surface observations and radar data from Belize indicate that an area of low pressure is centred just north of the Bay Islands of Honduras. The associated showers and thunderstorms show signs of organisation. However, the system does not yet have a well-defined circulation. Environmental conditions are expected to become gradually more conducive for further development, and a tropical depression or tropical storm is expected to form over the northwestern Caribbean Sea or the southern Gulf of Mexico on Sunday or Monday, while the system moves northwards. Interest in the Yucatan Peninsula, western Cuba, and the northern coast of the Gulf of Mexico should monitor the progress of this system during the next several days. Regardless of tropical cyclone formation, this disturbance will continue to bring torrential rains to portions of Central America, the Yucatan Peninsula, and western Cuba into next week. It's got an 80% chance of becoming a tropical storm or tropical cyclone in the next 2 days, and a 90% chance of doing so in the next 5 days. So that looks highly likely, that disturbance area just there. It looks highly likely to become our next named tropical storm, which I believe will be Tropical Storm or Tropical Cyclone Michael. Further north, we've got Leslie still meandering around, going nowhere fast. Still a tropical storm with sustained winds of 60 miles an hour. Let's see what's going on with Leslie in the next few days. So the current forecast position, or current position, is just there. The forecast is taking it in that kind of direction. Still nowhere near any land area, just meandering around at sea, going nowhere fast, up to Thursday. So we'll continue to keep an eye on what's happening with this very, very long-lasting tropical storm, Leslie, in the days ahead. Central England temperature for the first 5 days of October now warmer than average, so provisionally up to the 5th we're standing at 13.4, an anomaly of around 1 degree above average for the time of year. And we can expect this to tick down over the next couple of days. It's a cold day today, as we've already established. It'll be a cold night tonight with a fairly widespread ground frost. Tomorrow will be pretty chilly as well, and another fairly cool night coming up tomorrow night. So this is going to tick down, probably going under 13 degrees by the start of next week. But then later on next week, it will start to lift up. It may shoot up, actually, in this middle and second half of next week, as we could draw up some very warm air from the south indeed. 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University for the next 7 to 10 days look like this. We've got the ECMWF here on the top. The GFS, which we'll have a look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet, is an area in the absolute high pressure and low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Black extrapolates low pressure, red to high pressure. These are the flowcharts taking us to the 16th of October. And we see that the ECM is placing this large ridge of above average heights over and to the east and northeast of the British Isles. The jet stream with the areas of low pressure are locked in again up to the northwest. So how often have we said this over the past several months since May? High pressure is building in yet again, and this is going to take us into potential Indian summer for the middle part of October. It could get very warm. May even see temperatures getting towards the mid-20s Celsius. And just very similar to the weather patterns we've been having on and off throughout this year, really since May. I suppose you could say it's been kind of like been going on since February in some ways, since we had that sudden stratospheric warming that produced the Scandinavian high of the beast from the east. High pressure to the east of the country has been a regularly occurring feature since then, particularly through the summer, which was a very hot summer. And here we are going into the middle of October, and still this ongoing high pressure domination continues. And the GFS is very similar as well. So again, the above average heights are over and to the east of the country. We've got low pressure out to the northwest and down to our south as a cut-off low. The flow and the jet, though, is going like that. So again, high pressure just dominates as we get to the middle part of October. GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles are looking like this. We're looking at Aberdeen today, and the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Aberdeen. Starting off pretty cold today, and we've got another day or so of those cold upper air temperatures to go, but by the early part of next week, temperatures are lifting up, and then we're going to this very prolonged spell of warmer than average upper air temperatures. So basically, from around Monday, Tuesday onwards through to the end of the ensemble, it's above average. Although we do possibly in the second half of the month, that's 15th of October, just there. So beyond that, in the second half of the month, possibly see signs of the temperatures easing down. But overall, it looks like we're in for quite a prolonged warm spell, certainly in terms of the upper air temperatures. Precipitation wise, so relatively dry really for October. I mean, we have got precipitation spikes coming through here, but bear in mind this is for the very far north of the country, northeastern or eastern Scotland. So you would expect plenty of precipitation in October, really, and for the time of year, that's generally quite a dry ensemble. If we're looking at somewhere like London or somewhere in the southeast, it will be even drier than that. Temperature anomalies are coming out warmer than average from the 6th to the 14th of October. We're going back into this solidly warmer than average pattern that we have throughout the summer. It's returning after easing off a little bit through particularly late September. Here we go again, 6th to the 14th of October, and all parts of Europe and into Russia coming out with warmer than average temperature anomalies. Precipitation wise, it's drier than average, so dry and warm, basically summing it up from the 6th through to the 14th of October. This is how the generic charts looking men deal with the GFS first of all, and this is all covered by weekend broadcast, of course. But we've got high pressure over and to the south and east of the country, with low pressure up to the north on Tuesday. There's a weather front strung out in that sort of zone, producing most copious outbreaks of rain for western parts of Scotland. They go away on Wednesday as high pressure ridges in from the east. We turn the wind into the south, so it will be very warm through the middle part of the week. Get through to Thursday and Friday. Low pressure deepening in the Atlantic, but strengthening to the east of us. There will be a weather front moving into the west on Thursday, bringing some rain. That might take rain further eastwards across the country on Friday, but I think it will be a diminishing feature. And then into next weekend, high pressure takes over from the east again. So here we are. We have got to... I'm going to have to pause the video just there. I'll be back in a second. Right, we're back. Sorry about that. Interruptions and my door sorted out. So we were saying that over the next weekend, high pressure is building back in from the east yet again, and this could well take us into an Indian summer next weekend. So we've got high pressure across. It's a long way for us. It's way away in the northeast of Europe, around the Europe-Russia border. But it's exerting enough of an influence across the whole of the European continent to be bringing us these very warm southerly to southeasterly winds, with all the low pressure stuck out in the Atlantic. The jet stream is doing something a little bit like that, a bit of split in the jet stream, really. Some of the energy is going up there and some of the energy is going off down there. And if you follow the isobars back, you can see the air is originating from down here somewhere. So we kind of like bring the air up across Europe from North Africa. So it's not surprising that it is going to be pretty warm as we go into next weekend. This is up to Monday the 15th of October with high pressure again to the east, low pressure out to the west. The wind is in from that southerly southeast direction. Those are our upper air temperatures, way above average for the time of year, with the upper air temperatures. You would look at that in July and it wouldn't look out of place for an upper air temperature chart in July. For the middle of October, that is very warm indeed. Bear in mind, though, we are talking about high pressure in the middle of autumn. So what we can say is down on the surface, we can now start thinking about inversions. Now, I don't think we're going to have an inversion for the UK before the middle part of October. But here we are on Monday the 15th of October. You'll see that despite those upper air temperatures, let's go back to them, looking very warm across central parts of Europe. This is the area that we're looking at, this central part of Europe just here. Despite those upper air temperatures looking very warm, the surface temperatures indicated by the dew points are a lot cooler or even colder through central parts of Europe. So we call that an inversion, where the air is warm aloft in the upper atmosphere, but down on the surface, because heat will radiate away. Nights are getting much longer now, so over a landmass, you'll find, if the skies are clear, heat radiating away into space very quickly, and down on the surface, it will cool down very quickly under high pressure at this time of the year. In these situations, you can also get quite a lot of fog, of course, because you've got that contrasting temperatures from the warm air aloft to the cold surface. That can create fog down on the surface as well. So from around now onwards, through to around February or March, when we're under high pressure and we've got relatively warm upper air temperatures, it will not be all that straightforward in terms of forecasting. In the middle of summer, no problem. You see the warm upper air temperatures, you'll know that the surface temperature is going to be reflected around as well, and so you can predict very warm or hot conditions. But from pretty much now onwards, it's not as straightforward. These warm upper air temperatures are not necessarily, they can still be, but they're not necessarily guaranteed to be producing warm surface conditions. Now, that said, because for the UK and west of Europe, we've got this fairly brisk southerly southeasterly wind, we're not going to have an inversion. So it will still be very warm for us. But places like Germany, and going eastwards of that to Poland, I mean up to the northeast of Europe, under this area of high pressure, you will be colder on the surface than the upper air temperatures would suggest. You'll be hearing more about inversions, I suppose, as we go through the next few weeks and months. That's how things are looking at day 10. So again, we've still got the high pressure there across Scandinavia. We've still got low pressure in the Atlantic, still bringing up this balmy southerly to southeasterly wind. In the more extended range, we do have a go at breaking the Atlantic through. So this takes up to Thursday, 18th October, for example. The high pressure is weakening a little bit over Scandinavia. We're breaking these areas of low pressure through. That will bring some cloud and rain to southern and western parts of the country, but not for long, actually. And very quickly we find that the high pressure continues really over Scandinavia to be the main driver of weather. As I said, this high pressure has been a semi-permanent feature up here around Scandinavia since we had that sudden stratospheric warming back in February. Now, I don't think the sudden stratospheric warming is having an impact on the weather patterns now because it's too long ago, but I suspect what could be happening is that the things within the atmosphere, the parameters within the atmosphere that cause the sudden stratospheric warming, that cause the blocking over Scandinavia, probably are still at work. So things like the easterly QPO that we've had, that hasn't left us yet, although it's weakening. There are various other things, but solar minimum, of course, that favours blocking conditions. And so the things that cause the sudden stratospheric warming are probably still having an impact, and that's why we still see this ongoing signature of high pressure to try and root itself up over Scandinavia. Right, ECMWF is looking like that. So again, Tuesday, wetter, windy in the northwest, mainly dry, warm down in the south and the southeast through to the end of the week. Turns a little bit more unsettled Thursday and Friday, particularly in the north and west, but then we get through to next weekend and the high pressure builds back in again. So high pressure takes over next weekend, could produce a real barbecue weekend, even though it's the middle of October. That's how we look at day 10. High pressure is dominating the weather, ridging in more or less from west of Europe, but it extends from west of Russia, I should say, but it extends all the way to the west of Europe. Keep in mind, under that high pressure, we could well be getting some dense fog patches. You never really know these days with high pressure in the autumn and winter whether they're going to produce fog or not. We don't get as much fog as we used to 30 or 40 years ago, when this kind of pattern in middle of October would have been very, very suggestive of dense fog. But we don't get as much fog as we used to. Nevertheless, we can still get fog, of course, so you never quite know whether a situation like this will produce fog. But if it does, that will also mean that the temperatures don't get as warm by day as you might expect. And then finally, the GEM, with low pressure to the northwest, high pressure down to the south and the southeast in the early part of next week. A little bit more unsettled Thursday to Friday, but then this high pressure takes over from the east, ridging in from eastern and northeastern Europe, dominating the weather, bringing up these warm southeasterly winds as well. We get to day 10, that's how we're looking. High pressure is still dominating. Notice the centre of this ridge is over Scandinavia, and it is trying to creep a little bit further north as well. It's trying to get itself up towards sort of Greenland, that kind of area, Svalbard perhaps. So that's going a long way north, that ridge. And it's not impossible if we would go on a few more days, but we might start to bring some colder air in from the east. Bear in mind, on the back side of this high pressure, we're starting to pull down those cold northerly winds out of the Arctic towards western parts of Russia. So maybe if we could roll on another few days, we might start to bring some colder air from the east. It would be very speculative if we do that. But as I was explaining, from around now onwards, high pressure, or from the middle of October onwards, high pressure will not be guaranteed to bring particularly warm weather, even if the upper air temperatures are very warm. Down on the surface, it can be a very different kettle of fish from around the middle of October onwards. So inversions, something we'll increasingly be talking about, I think, over the next few weeks and months. Unless this high pressure breaks down, of course, maybe, but very shortly the Atlantic will ramp up and we'll go into a proper spell of stormy, wetter, windy weather. I know a lot of you are waiting for that. A lot of you are really, really fed up with this high pressure now that's just been going on and on and on. But bear in mind, again, if you want a cold winter, the things that, as I say, the things that give us a hot summer, in terms of the blocking highs, can very often be the same things that give us a cold winter. So if you want a cold winter, you should probably be hoping and rooting that this high pressure will still be blocking over Scandinavia in December. If it is, things get very, very interesting. Right, well, that's it for today's videos. Tomorrow, talking of winter, we'll be back with the 6th winter update. And also, we've got the first written update. That's written, not video. Written update for Christmas. We always do a couple of written posts for Christmas during October ahead of the Christmas updates, which always begin on Christmas video updates, which always begin on the 1st of November. So come back for all the updates tomorrow. Don't forget to check out Weekend Forecast if you haven't yet done so. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.